I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the Buyouts Are Bigger in Texas sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
All right. I see what you did there. Bigger in Texas. You know, they should have signed it in the basement of the Alamo.
Remember that? Yeah.
You get that joke?
I know what the Alamo is. Do I? so maybe clearly not, I guess.
I was so surprised that you were going to get the basement of the Alamo joke.
Yeah, the basement of the Alamo, I don't know.
All right. I don't know what happens if you Google basement of the Alamo, but when we're done, we'll talk about it on next show. But when we're done, we'll go outside and you'll Google it and we'll see what comes up. Okay. I love that you're like, because right away you responded very positively. And I'm like, wait, you know that? No, you don't know that. All right.
Yeah.
So the buyout was Jumbo. For Jimbo.
Jumbo for Jimbo.
Jumbo for Jimbo. I mean, if I may, and I thought maybe that would have been a better way to go for the Open, by the way.
I think it was. Yeah,
okay, good. Glad to see you're amenable today.
Yeah.
But this is, when we saw it that he was going to get fired, or they were thinking about firing, I mean, how'd you like to be the athletic director to go to the Board of Regents and be like, well, we brought him in at a lot of money. This really isn't working out the way. And when you look back, I just don't get it. I don't understand where the leverage came from to get this kind of contract. Yep. It's not as if he is sort of a one of one, to borrow a term from the NFT world. The whole thing, at a time when public universities are kind of cutting back in areas of education, NIL, where they say they shouldn't pay players, every argument sort of takes a ding when you see that Texas A&M is giving him $77 million not to coach. Oh, and by the way, if I may, this will be my last point, then I'll let you go off. But there's no offset. So this guy can go get another job at another university, collect 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, and they still got to pay him the whole amount. Who in the world negotiated this deal?
This is Texas A&M football coach Jimbo Fisher. I've got a few thoughts here. One, just to kind of put in context what was happening when he signed this contract. Jimbo Fisher came to Texas A&M 5 or 6 years ago. It happened right as Texas A&M was getting its feet under it in the SEC, was realizing some success, some football success, which is all that matters, against schools like Alabama and Auburn and other SEC powerhouses. They had just built the biggest, glitziest, fanciest stadium project, I think, in NCAA football history. They were flush with money, a lot of oil industry donors. It was a good time to be in the oil industry in the past 5 or 6 years. This was a school that was flush with money, was realizing new level of football success, and thought that Jimbo Fisher, who was a longtime assistant and then head coach in Florida State, was the answer. So they gave him this contract that, you're right, Scott, in retrospect looks crazy. And it's two things. It's the size of the payout, and it's the offset. It's the fact that if he gets hired tomorrow to be the coach at Houston, they still owe him all that money.
Can I give 5 syllables here? Let me jump in with 5 syllables.
Yeah, go ahead.
Incentive laden. You can give him a nice base salary. That's okay. You think you're going to be great? Great. Load it up with incentives at great numbers where if you do win, if the money pours in, you will be paid handsomely. Guaranteeing it all without an offset? Come on.
And I think that certainly the numbers are extreme, but I think this is kind of the direction of college football coaching, right? This is the way these contracts are going to increasingly play out. And the biggest bonus or payout that we've seen, the severance payout that we'd seen prior in college football was it was Charlie Weiss. It was $19 million. So you can look at this as 3.5 times,
which ain't nothing, by
next
the way.
Closest, which is which is a huge gap. I would say that oftentimes these things get settled in court. So Pat Fitzgerald is going to walk away with way more than $19 million probably from Northwestern. So there's lots of coaches who have walked away with some kind of private negotiated settlement package that is more than $19 million. But the other thing I'll say is there's a chance that financially this is not a huge thing for the university. We often see athletic departments will raise money from donors specifically for this purpose.
Yep.
So I don't think it's like suddenly Texas A&M somewhere on its balance sheet needs to find $77 million. They're going to pay it over the next 8 or so years, right? It's $20 million up front, then a bunch of $7 million payments year after year. After that, there's a good chance that enough Texas A&M donors came to the school and were like, we need a change. Here's $5 million, put it towards whatever you want. But that they realized that eventually they had the financial wherewithal, privately raised, funded to make this change, and that maybe that money wasn't going to be there if they were not changing the football coach. Who knows? There's a lot in there that I think is kind of up for interpretation, at least right now. But Mel Tucker got one of these contracts. We didn't talk about it, I don't think. Bill Self, basketball coach at Kansas, just got a kind of a version of it also.
Where did that number come from? What else is Bill Self going to go do?
Yeah, I think that's it's not. I don't think schools always look at this as them in a position of power. I think they look at this as, this is our football coach. He's been recruiting very well, which Jimbo did. Fans are going to be livid if he leaves, which is probably true back when they gave him this contract. I don't think schools do a very good job, or even a job at all, of really using their leverage position, because you're right. Bill Self has been at Kansas forever. Is the NBA interested? Who knows? The NBA is probably not going to pay him what he's getting paid at Kansas. And
let me tell you, he ain't going to have the quality of life as an NBA coach that he's going to have at the college level.
100%. So yeah, who has the leverage in that situation? I think you can make an argument that oftentimes schools have more leverage than they think they do, or certainly more leverage than they're willing to put out there. But again, because of the way that donors really drive a lot of these big-time college sports programs, oftentimes these contracts are paid for by themselves, by people who are like, you need to get the biggest coach ever.
But eventually,
and the opposite is also true.
You're going to like this because you said oil donors, whatever. So I'm going to bring it. Eventually, like T. Boone Pickens in Oklahoma State says, is there something else I can do with my money? Like,
that's the fear.
Eventually, the well runs dry. There you go. That's it. The spigot is. Well, I'll get there. The well runs dry. And then it's like, well, what do we do? Like, you can't go back again. You can't do this again.
Why not?
I just don't think the boosters will pay again. It's like
you tell the boosters you can get Urban Meyer for $100 million, and suddenly you have 65
and is that,
of it.
What does that guarantee you? And
nothing.
What does that guarantee you?
Nothing. But it guarantees you some excitement, and then when it's time to buy him out in 5 years, maybe the same donors are ready to do a change to get somebody else.
This is what I know. Jim Harbaugh gets suspended, right? So Michigan goes into Penn State. Now, if I'm paying Jim Harbaugh what I think they're paying Jim Harbaugh, I didn't look at the number, but I got to figure we're not going to win this game. Like, our head coach is not there. He is so darn valuable, and I get it, but they have recruiting coordinators, that we got no chance without our head coach and his genius going into Penn State and his ability to motivate, yada, yada, yada. And Michigan goes into Penn State and they win. They beat the Nittany Lions. I'm like, what am I paying Jim Harbaugh for? How valuable is Jim Harbaugh versus my assistant coach here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're selectively.
I'm overly simplifying. I understand. I know.
He prepped the team for the game up until the minute they stepped on the field.
Get it, but he's not there coaching. I don't. Again, the power dynamics are totally out of whack.
The reverse, yes, that is factually true. The reverse side of that, do you think there is anyone at the University of Alabama that would tell you that they've overpaid Nick Saban? I think the answer is probably no. I think the tens of millions, maybe at this point hundreds of millions that Nick Saban has made at Alabama in the past 15 years, I would think that almost everybody at the school says that every dime of that was money well spent.
Yeah, but it didn't start out as that. Like, he built the legacy at Alabama. Jimbo Fisher didn't do that.
100%. Yeah, Nick Saban picked up the legacy and rebuilt it. Yeah, but if Jimbo Fisher, in an alternate world where he delivered on the expectation, and Texas A&M not only was recruiting but was on the field being a top 5 or top 10 football team. I think this is a contract that works out really well.
That's why I say incentively,
school, right?
Make it work first. Make it. Okay, what's our line from the story? Hold on. Hold on. I'm scrolling so you can talk right here. Where is it? Here it is. Ready? Here's my favorite paragraph from our story. You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah, I have an idea. Yeah, data.
The $77 million is roughly what Texas A&M earns in a single year from tickets, sponsorship, licensing, and advertising from, and here's the important 2 words, all sports.
Yeah.
To frame what this means to Texas A&M.
It's more than the operating budget of the football team, the men's basketball team, and the women's basketball team combined for a single year. And again, they're going to pay this out over a bunch of years. There's 55 FBS schools, Scott, that have their entire athletic budget is less than $77 million. And that includes Power 5 schools like UCF, like Houston, like Cincinnati. I mean, this is an astronomical amount of money, really, no matter how you slice it. But I do think that there is a chance that a lot of this is just being borne by rich, deep-pocketed donors who were ready to pony up to help make a change.
Well, if anybody
My question
can dig
also, who do they hire next, right?
Yeah.
The next person's going to have to get a smaller contract, I would think.
Yes.
I mean, who comes in after this? There's a strain in college football and college basketball is the same way, where everyone thinks the way they treat their coach on the way out is going to affect the way that
who they can recruit the way
who they can recruit the next guy. If I'm a college football coach and I'm thinking about taking a job at Texas A&M, they're going to treat you really well on your way out, also, right? So there is some
This to me
value
is
there.
what they're striving for.
That I think is part of the thinking here. Also, is that the way that you structure some of these deals does make it a place that a lot of coaches look at and they're like, I would like to go there. I would like to go
I don't know. I just look at like the mid-majors in basketball, and you find these guys that nobody knew, and they turn out to be great coaches. And that do some homework, do some diligence. Actually, go find a good young coach that you believe in that can make something of your program. For God's sake,
Sportico search firm, Scott.
Yeah. Well, how many? I think a lot of these universities utilize the search firms just so they have somebody to blame, just so they can deflect. It wasn't us.
100%. Yeah.
It wasn't us. Anyway. No blame to go around the NWSL. Only credit it's being taken around the league for the new media deal. What did we say? How many times? We went from $1.5 million to 60, and we still don't know exactly what goes into that number. I get it; it's not all cash.
Big caveat on the 60.
Yeah, big caveat. But we do know it is a healthy increase from where the NWSL was to where they are now.
And this is news, partially not the number, but the news you and I broke 6 weeks ago at this point. 4 new domestic national media partners for the NWSL. It is Scripps, it is CBS, it is ESPN, and it is Amazon. The league officially announced it last week. We were told there's a way of the accounting works to get it to $60 million a year, 4-year deal, so $240 million. That's a lot of money, Scott. Even if there's a hefty chunk of that 60 that is production
is in
costs,
marketing budget costs,
and even if it's promotions and things like that. You're right. This was a league that was getting $1.5 million from its TV partners last year, and if you factor in production costs off the $1.5 million, it was negative. Teams were losing money on the previous TV deal. Now they will not be losing money on the previous TV deal. So it is definitely a step up. Another interesting thing that caught my eye, I know it caught your eye as well. There's 190 games, NWSL games a year. 118 of them are going to be streamed
You're going direct
nationally.
to consumer. I hear you. I hear it in your voice.
The league will, it sounds like, is looking to build a streaming service, a direct-to-consumer streaming service that will host the other 70-plus games that are not part of this national TV package. They'll need a partner, I'm sure, to find a New Lion or a Delta Tray or something like that. Who knows what that's going to cost? So there could be some added costs here for diehard NWSL fans that really want the opportunity to watch every game. But a mix of traditional media here with CBS and ESPN. You got Amazon in here, and then you have the league standing up at some point their own streaming service as well.
Your thoughts, though, sort of on the disparate nature of it all, because I mean, listen, fans are going to know Friday night means this, Wednesday night means this. I got it. But if I'm trying to build casual fans and build audience, you like that it's ESPN, you like that it's CBS. I get all that. But MLS, I know it's Apple. I know every single time, boom, I know exactly where I need to go. This, you got 4 different partners, and now maybe a direct-to-consumer. Sometimes you get a little lost in the shuffle. I always say it's True TV in March. Everybody has to reacquaint where it is on the channel lineup.
There's no question that what MLS and Apple did if you're a diehard fan, is a dream. It's one thing, no matter where you are, literally in the world, you're watching it on the same platform. All of the NWSL owners I talked to, the Apple deal came up a lot. nobody wanted that deal. Everybody wanted, even if it was...
You need scale right now. You need
scale. Even if it was multiple platforms, which this obviously is, everybody recognized that being on CBS, the broadcast channel, occasionally is great. And being on ESPN or ESPN2, which they're going to be, and even on ABC, Scott, they'll have some games on ABC, probably playoff games here, but there's a tremendous value there. So I think the owners, this was a very intentional move, obviously, to go for a deal that was going to put them in a lot of big reach megaphone places, as opposed to a single place that fans can find it. And 4-year deal, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but 4-year deal gets them through the end of the next World Cup cycle. There's a lot of commercial growth happening in all aspects of NWSL right now. I think the expectation for a lot of people around the league is we get 4 more years of growth from the investors coming in, to new sponsors, to the quality of play.
Is there something happening in 4 years that perhaps might be tied to the expiration of this contract? Eben? Is there some event that has a soccer ball and maybe some flags and names? Is there something else going on that might be tied to the expiration date?
Get through the Women's World Cup in 2026.
Yes.
And hopefully the U.S. women's team does well in that. An off year, I think you would say, last year at the World Cup. But this is a deal definitely structured so that if the commercial growth continues in the way we've seen in the past 18 months to 2 years, that there will hopefully be a much bigger deal on the back end of this contract.
Can I tie this to garbage? Yes, I can. The expiration of contracts matter. The timing matters. If you know anything about sort of your labor negotiations between the City of New York and the Department of Sanitation, you will know that the Department of Sanitation always wants the contracts to expire in June or July. The city would like it to expire in November, December, January, something like that.
This is interesting. I like this.
Yes. Yeah. And the question everybody's thinking, what the heck is Soshnick talking about? Well, you know why.
I think because I do.
Yes, I bet you do. In June and July, when it's really, really hot out, if there's a strike and the garbage piles up outside, it stinks to high heaven, and people demand that something gets solved because that's a huge quality of life issue. So expiration time matters. Right after the World Cup, that's a pretty darn good time for a contract to expire if you're selling a women's soccer league. That sounds like a good idea to me.
Great stuff, Scott. I did not
think
you.
I can bring it to garbage. Absolutely.
Sanitation politics was going to be a topic on the show here, but you absolutely nailed it.
I love it. And by the way, there was a lot. Did you watch any of Gotham Reign? Did you watch any of the championship game?
I did not watch the championship game.
You're outside running or something.
I was actually at the UFC event on Saturday night.
Oh, okay. But I mean, there was a lot of buildup. Yeah. It was like Ali Krieger and Megan Rapinoe's final game. We had written about Carolyn Tish-Blodgett buying into Gotham, send her congratulations. That's a good first week or so as a limited partner in a franchise. Mm-hmm. Like, do you get a ring? Do you get a ring for that? You're here for a week. I don't know how much input you probably had, right? But we've been talking about in the NWSL specifically. It's not about sort of the what and the amount, but it's about the who. Like, who are these folks looking to get in? What's the level of sophistication? What are the synergies with other businesses, with other teams? And that's sort of where we're looking. We talked about the Seattle Sounders sort of in the home stretch to acquire Reign, and obviously we have know-how and synergies. So interesting time. That's what we'll leave it. I'm curious to see where it all goes.
And there is almost entire turnover of the league's ownership in the past 3 or 4 years at this point, right? Off the top of my head, I actually can't think of a team once the Thorns are sold. The Red Stars just sold. I can't think of any teams that are still owned by the people that owned them 5 years ago, control stake. Right. There's been so much turnover in this exact way. It's new MLS owners that also bought the NWSL team. It's new private equity investors. It's new owners from other sports. It's a really nice mix of very smart, deep-pocketed people from very different corners of sports and entertainment. But there has been almost an entirely full turnover roster of owners as NWSL reaches whatever you want to call this new level of commercial success.
Speaking of smart people, though I don't want to comment on the deep-pocketed nature of Kurt Bodenhausen's personal life, but I love when I'm sitting next to Kurt, and you get a little alert that Ariel Investments is selling 13% of its Manchester United stake. And of course, what we try to do at Sportico, and I think every kind of outlet does, is what the why, the what, why should you care, what does it matter? They have been selling down, for a while now. But, then Kurt says, well, to me, this is the biggest indicator that they don't expect any sort of really price bump. Like nothing soaring, nothing like when the Glazers said they were looking to sell the franchise and the numbers soared. Kurt told me that they've been selling a lot. They paid between 12 and 14 for much of it, right?
Per share,
peaked at 12, per share. You're at 18 now, so this is taking some money off the table. This to Kurt means the biggest indication that Mr. Radcliffe will buy a stake of the team, and that's priced in. That's where we are. They're not expecting any surprises where, guess what, full control sale, and we're changing hands. So I just thought we mentioned it, and Kurt looks at it that way.
That sounds exactly right. This was once the largest institutional shareholder in Manchester United. No longer the largest.
Number two now.
Number two. They've sold, by my calculation, almost 50% of their shares. They had in March of 2022, they had 12.3 million. It looks like they've sold around 6 million in the past 5 quarters. So definitely shifting down. Who knows if they're trying to get out entirely, but if they bought that many shares, Scott, between $12 and $14, and now they're selling it at 18, that's not a bad end result for the investors. It does make me wonder what to actually extrapolate from this about Manchester United and just how prohibitively expensive international soccer at that level is becoming. But it does certainly seem like this is a group that feels like the value that they were going to extract out of this investment has happened. And now it's time to strike while the iron's hot.
I had a conversation with a hockey dad. I was in the rink all day Saturday, and we played Providence, and one of the dads, actually goalie dad from the other team, huge PSG fan, and I see him on Twitter all the time talking. And he was just sort of discussing sort of the post-Neymar and Messi era and how are they gonna move forward. I said, my guess is you're going to sort of see a homegrown rebuild. Right? It's not going to be just pouring unlimited resources in, chasing that Champions League dream.
And for PSG especially, which is owned by the Qatari government, I think there's an argument that some of the value of having that was about the build-up to the World Cup. And now that the World Cup in Qatar has happened, I think it's an interesting question about where the Qataris see that value now that the World Cup is in the rearview mirror as opposed to coming up. But yeah, this is the world that all these teams are now competing against. It's not individual humans. It's people with hundreds of billions of dollars of capital. And by the
way, some don't necessarily need to win.
Exactly.
And some don't necessarily need to make money. Some don't need to make money. Yeah, it's just like they do want to. I just want to win, and I don't care. Remember, like way back when I said I asked Mark Cuban after he won the first NBA title. I think he lost money that year. Do you consider it a victory if you win a championship? I think the first one, yes, but lose money in the future. Yeah, I'm the worst. I've never actually asked him again. Should I shoot him a note saying, hey, Mark, I've told this anecdote a couple of times, but I don't remember what you said.
Totally.
My guess would be for him, be like, no, I want to make money and win. So. Yeah, I don't know. And also, by the way, what popped in this morning, this not surprising here, but CAA, which has Evolution, we know that, Alan Gold, but CAA combining with M. Klein & Co. To Chase Sports, Media, Tech, Sports Adjacency Investment House, taking on the likes of Rain and Lion Tree and just another person another group in the mix.
Yeah, another group that's going to help with M&A deals, help with capital raises, maybe take equity as a piece of the deals that they do. That's worked out very successfully for those other groups that you've mentioned, Scott. CAA recently just changed hands or is about to change hands. I don't know if that deal has officially closed yet, but there's no shortage of sports deal makers. But as more people look at all of these things as a new kind of asset class, and as the blending of sports and entertainment and media kind of continues to accelerate, I do think you're going to see more and more groups that see opportunity in that world for sure.
I love that we come from a position where we are fortunate enough. We have access to some of the smartest folks, obviously, in the industry. At a moment's notice, something like this. No, access to, certainly, yeah. I mean, I can call you if I want that, but I'm talking smartest people in the industry. I'm not calling you. That's why I mentioned Bodenhausen. He's on my speed dial.
There you go.
But something, boom, this hits. Okay, I see the news headline flash right away. So I send 3 messages out to 3 different people. Hey, give me the why. Give me what's up here. What do you see?
Yeah.
And one was very interesting. Just some person came back and said, Klein has embedded relationships with sovereign wealth in the Middle East. Evolution sees the writing on the wall. Smart to make this partnership happen. Fish where the fish are. Yeah, I just love it. I don't know enough about Michael Klein to know what I didn't know. Okay,
Yeah.
but that makes total sense if he's embedded in the Middle East. It makes perfect sense because we see a lot of investment coming from that part of the world.
Yeah, my first reaction on this is that this is kind of what Evolution Media Capital does already, right?
Yeah,
like
see,
this
Alan
is
Gold does
they're
this, right?
already
Yeah.
doing these M&A capital raises, equity position, things like that. But yeah, if there is something that M. Klein, and maybe it is relationships in specific parts of the world, if there's something that they bring to the table that facilitate whatever this joint venture being bigger than the sum of its parts, yeah, that makes total sense to me.
All right, go ahead. You can close out the show. That's all I got, my friend.
All righty. He is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novi Williams. You can find me on Twitter at Novi_Williams.
By the way, wait, I have to jump in there. By the way,
Ooh, okay.
you have more followers than I do now. I saw that the other day.
Whoa, look at that.
See, most people would keep that quiet. If you had anybody with ego would keep that quiet. I am thrilled to see you building your audience and be successful, Novi.
The
I am
overseas
thrilled.
content farms that I'm paying to follow me.
Absolutely. I
Finally
must
kicked
say,
in.
listen, I've got a lot of things I do. I do not have the time to devote audience development to Twitter that you do. You do a wonderful job, and I luckily, what can I do when in cars they draft? Right? So I get really close on my Twitter feed. I draft, which to me is the retweet button. That's the draft.
Sure, yeah.
And that's what I can pay attention to that. You do such a great job that I'm happy to let you bask in the glory and build that audience as long as I can then retweet. Attaboy, way to go.
I manage that with the underscore, Scott. I just want to make that.
Yeah, well, you're overcoming. I mean, it's taking you a really long. It's taking you, in fairness, it has taken you a really long time to make that happen.
It has. Well, folks, you should
But
follow both of
congratulations.
us. You should follow Scott at Soshnick. You should follow me at Novi.
But I need 201
Williams.
more people to follow me than him so I can reclaim
That's
my title.
fine. I'm happy to see that. The show is produced by Erin Greenewald. Shout out to Erin. She does a great job. Sporticast digital media editor Cora Veltman would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.